Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Flock's Nest Sports Podcast. As always, I am one of your hosts, Dallas, repping 52 of the Baltimore Ravens, Ray Lewis.
As always, on the other half, Brendan repping 54, Bobby Wagner of the Seattle Seahawks.
Awesome. We got a pretty good episode for you guys today. Might be a little shorter, but hey, we're repping with the information we have at our disposal. Obviously, going to start with breaking news. Talk some Seahawks, some Ravens, and
A couple trades in the NHL
yes,
prior to the NHL
hockey.
trade deadline.
And we're going to talk our team of the week, which is the Green Bay Packers.
Yes.
So, Brendan, let's just dive right in. Let's start with breaking news in the NFL.
Yes.
Trades.
NFL did make a trade. The San Francisco 49ers have traded Deebo Samuel to the Washington Commanders in exchange for a fifth-round pick in the upcoming draft. That's all the information we have. That's all the trade was Deebo for a fifth.
I'm a little surprised a fifth was their best offer.
That.
But I think he's a really good fit for the Commanders and what they're trying to do.
Yes.
I'm a little shocked they're aging that room up. Like McLaurin's a veteran, Deebo. I would expect them to draft a wide receiver, try and get a little youth in there. But I think he's a good fit for that team. I mean, you go to the NFC Championship, you just try to get better. So to add somebody as versatile and as talented as Deebo is, and his contract, while is a little heavy, it's a really cheap team right now. So
yeah, you're not paying Jaden anything.
Yeah. So while you have him, Jaden, on that rookie deal, fucking pay everybody else. That's the beauty of rookie quarterback contracts.
Yeah, that's why you see rookie quarterback contracts tend to pay dividends for teams. I think this is a really smart move from the Commanders. Again, fifth round pick, not a whole lot you're giving either way. And for Deebo, who I'm not a huge fan of, but at the same time, he is a good yards after catch. He can make plays.
Yeah.
You can use him in a variety of ways. So I think he does really improve this offense that only had one target in McLaurin. So overall, I like this trade for the Commanders. For the 49ers, I think this is a little underwhelming. I think just based on what happened last year, obviously when trades happen at the deadline, they are inflated. That tends to be the case. But considering what people went for at the deadline, I feel like the 49ers could have gotten more for Deebo. Considering like a Jonathan Mingo went for a fourth at the deadline. So for the 49ers, I understand trying to get rid of that contract because he wasn't the best locker room presence either. There was some issues there. So I understand from that perspective, but I think getting a fifth in return is a little underwhelming.
Yeah, that's the only part about it that surprises me, is that you weren't able to get a fourth or even a third out of Deebo. Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I think he's talented as a wide receiver. He is a diva. He wanted more money. He didn't want to be used the way he was being used in San Fran. I think it's good for the 49ers, and I think it's good for the Commanders, and I think it's good for Deebo. As for the 49ers, I think they just wanted him out, and to clear the cap space, there's all these rumors. And obviously, John Lynch talked about wanting to get Purdy his new contract, and, wherever you might think he should sit, it's going to add a hell of a capital to it. So to clear some of that cap space with Deebo's contract,
whatever else they decide to do,
I feel like in the past couple of years, like the 49ers front office has gotten so much credit for the team they've built and all of these things. And in the last couple of years, we're really starting to see like the flaws in how they do business in terms of waiting till the very end. So people are skipping training camps and missing games, and you're getting ready to have a cap nightmare. And just how that's being handled, I think, is just kind of shedding a light on the 49ers organization.
And I do think the 49ers, with Ayuk already having a contract, obviously had the season-ending injury last year, and then with Pearsall coming on his rookie deal, they are okay in the receiver room, and they can also draft one this year. And in my opinion, you can draft a receiver any year, and they'll probably
Yeah. Like
contribute in
wide
some way.
receivers come out of the draft. It's one of the easiest to draft.
Yeah, like there are
Like,
misses, but at the same time, like
yes.
you can take a receiver in the seventh round and he can contribute. You can take a receiver anywhere in the draft and they'll contribute to a team. So I don't necessarily dislike what they did, but again, a little underwhelming if you're the
Yeah.
49ers. But at the end of the day, they had to make the move. And I think it was a smart move to get him out the building.
Yeah. I agree with that.
All right. Now more news. The Philadelphia Eagles have released Darius Slay, the veteran corner. That frees up a little over $4 million. It was a designated post June 1st release. So they are saving $4.3 million against the cap. I kind of think he's becoming a cap casualty to a very stacked team.
Yeah.
Obviously, he is aging, but he's a quality corner still. I would be intrigued to see if he might go back for less money or if he signs somewhere else.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised at that one. But I think this is the year that like Hertz's contract officially kicks in.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and when you think about on the opposite end, the Eagles spot talent very well in the draft and they draft extremely well. So if you can kind of eliminate cap, and they've very clearly they spend their money on the offensive side of the ball
Yeah.
in free agency and big contracts, and they operate the defensive side of the ball through the draft. So if that's kind of one of your most expensive pieces, I get it. But he
Especially,
contributed a lot to that defense and a lot to that locker room. So I am a little shocked
I'm a little
that
shocked. I
they
think it,
weren't able to make that work.
I'm a little shocked. I wonder if this is a thing of you did just draft two really good rookies that play corner, and if you're sitting there going, we want to get younger and cheaper, you make a
Yeah.
little bit more against the cap than we would like, and you're, I think, 33 at this point. He's up there.
Oh, damn.
He is a veteran. He's been in the league for a while. If you're sitting there going, we
Yeah,
want to
I
get,
just didn't realize he was quite there.
I don't know if he's
But
33. I know he's been in the league for a long time. So it makes sense if you want to get younger. At the same time, he was very impactful in that locker
yeah,
room. So again, I think this could be a cut for now. Maybe sign him back to a lesser deal, or maybe he does go somewhere else.
yeah,
We'll kind of wait and see for free agency, but that was one of the more interesting moves that happened, and that's gonna happen here for a little bit in terms of releasing people. And then the only other bit of breaking news in the NFL is T. Higgins, the wide receiver of the Cincinnati Bengals, was given the franchise tag of 26 point, I think $1 million. Quite a hefty tag to be putting on a
yeah,
wide receiver. $26.2 million franchise tag. This is the second year in a row he has been franchise tagged. So It's quite a hefty price to pay, but they keep their star wide receiver.
Yeah. Look, I've given multiple opinions on T and what I think should be done with him. Um, this was not one of my options, actually. You now just keep kind of kicking these options down the road. It's. I'm surprised he keeps signing the tag, is really kind of the thing that I'm a little confused by. I do kind of wonder if you tag him to then trade him,
I
because
do think
before
that's a
this you couldn't trade him. Like, he was either going to walk or not. So now the Bengals have some kind of power. But look, Jamar Chase still needs a contract. Joe Burrow has been very vocal about wanting to keep Higgins and Chase. So I guess this is a way to do that.
yeah. You're
It's
just.
not the smartest way, but it's a way.
I mean, if you keep kicking the can, you can keep getting away with it until you can't.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
why don't you go call the Saints and ask them
yeah,
how that works out?
yeah. So
And the day that all of that shit comes to a head, if you can possibly function as a franchise, you can't. So,
we will see, but they do get to keep him for now. Obviously, this does mean, as you said, that he can be traded. Um, Whether someone would want to trade for that $26.2 million hit this year, we'll see. But that is a hefty price to pay. Um, so we'll kind of see. But for
yeah.
now, T. Higgins will remain a Cincinnati Bengal. That's kind of it for the breaking news in the NFL. Um,
Awesome. Awesome. Then let's move on to the NHL and hockey, as there were some trades because we have
yeah,
not quite reached the trade deadline. I believe that's this Friday.
that is, it is. It is Friday, March 7th is the official trade deadline. I believe at 1 o'clock uh, Eastern. It might be 1 o'clock Pacific. Don't quote me on that.
It's a time. It's one
But
o'clock somebody's time.
yeah, it is March 7th though. That is for sure. But yeah, trade deadline. So we got some trades leading up to it. We'll start with the first one that broke over the weekend. It does involve the Colorado Avalanche. As you all know, that is our team in the NHL. So this one does involve them. We have the Colorado Avalanche receive Ryan Lindgren, Jimmy Vesey, and Hank Kempf from the New York Rangers, and the New York Rangers get Calvin DeHaan, Juuso Parssinen, a 2025 second, and a 2025 fourth round pick. So that's all the moving parts. Pretty straightforward trade, looking like one for one in terms of players, and then two picks and a college player that is just changing hands.
Yeah.
So pretty standard hockey trade, nothing too crazy. In terms of what they got, the Avalanche get a better defenseman in Lindgren than they give up in DeHaan, so they upgrade there. Jimmy Vesey, in my opinion, isn't necessarily an upgrade at forward compared to Parssinen. Parssinen is younger, has more potential. Vesey is, I believe, in his 30s, and we kind of already know what he is. But when it comes to playoffs, maybe having someone like that is a little better. So wouldn't necessarily it's an upgrade or a downgrade. Just kind of pick your poison. And then Hank Kempf is a unsigned draft pick. So he is still in college. I believe he is 22 and is a defenseman. He was a seventh round pick, I want to say. So not someone that you're really expecting much out of, but was added into the trade just for a little bit of value. And sometimes those pieces can find their footing with a new squad. Kind of just depends. And then obviously on the other side, a second and a fourth round pick. That's just
doesn't even matter.
Picks.
Yeah. And picks they're so different in hockey. Like after round, like nobody cares. It's not.
Honestly, after
it's just different.
After the top like 10.
Yeah, it's like, okay, we picked somebody because we had to.
Yeah. After the first round, I'll say, it doesn't matter. The hit rate isn't very high.
No.
Hockey's weird. Undrafted players are more likely to hit the ground running than drafted some players sometimes. It's a weird thing with hockey.
Yeah.
So picks can be kind of just magic beans that you might get lucky. So trading picks is nothing I'll ever.
No, I don't give a crap.
Yeah. Especially the Avalanche, they tend to say fuck them picks.
Yeah, they don't give a crap.
There was 1 year that they had one draft pick the whole draft, and it was a 7th round pick. So
yep, and they were like, whatever, we'll use it, I guess. No, I mean, I think the Avs are very clearly anticipating certain contracts coming down. Like, we know Makar, and I think they're very clearly. I think last year was really disappointing.
Mm-hmm.
And they had much higher expectations for that team. But with Landeskog go out and everything that happened there, I think this year's just a real push for cheaper and a playoff run.
Yeah, I think this year is let's go on a run, see what happens. Obviously you're gonna have to pay some people, but we'll kind of see what happens. I will say, if everything works out, the Colorado's GM should win GM of the year because they have overhauled a lot of that team just through trades this year. It's been kind of insane. I think the Avs have made the most trades of any team in the NHL so far. It's been happening quick, and they're probably not done yet. There's been reports that they are working on more trades. Whether another trade happens remains to be seen, but they are still working on more.
Yeah.
So we'll kind of see what happens there. And then for the Rangers, I think this deal just makes a lot of sense for them as well. Because they were a team that kind of sucked at the beginning of the year, is getting better, but aren't sure if they're going to make the playoffs, contend in the playoffs. So getting younger and cheaper and getting picks probably isn't the worst idea.
Yeah. Maybe we don't build for this year, but we are building towards something.
Yeah. So, building towards something is always a good idea. All right. That's the Avalanche and Rangers trade. There's one more trade in the NHL. The Chicago Blackhawks and the Florida Panthers made a trade. The Florida Panthers get Seth Jones, a star defenseman, in exchange for Spencer Knight and a 2027 first round pick. Spencer Knight is a pretty young goaltender who can really be a star in the league. Has had some starting experience with the Florida Panthers and played really well, but is like 22, I believe. So pretty young. Hasn't got a whole ton of NHL experience, but has looked really solid in the limited we've seen of him. So interesting trade. Seth Jones going to Florida. The Blackhawks are retaining 25% of his contract for the next 5 years. So quite a hefty,
quite a bit. God damn.
Especially because I think he makes $9 million a year. So that's quite a sum.
In hockey money, that's a lot. I know it doesn't sound like a lot if you're a football fan. Hockey money, that's a lot.
The highest paid hockey player makes $12 million, I believe.
Yeah, that's
and it's
crazy.
About to be 15. will be the highest. So, like 9 is pretty
9 is pretty damn good.
up there. So
That's
yeah,
crazy.
they're retaining 25% of that for the next 5 years. So that's a pretty penny that they're paying someone that no longer plays for them.
Well, look, from the Panthers' perspective, I get it. You made it to the Cup final last year. You are doing everything you can
Yeah. You won
to
it
be
last
a
year.
contender. Like you want to keep going. You saw Tampa Bay win 2 in a row. Like you're
Yeah.
trying to repeat that. From the Blackhawks' perspective, seems insane.
From the Blackhawks, it's clear as much cap as we can, get younger, and get picks because they
Like
suck. The problem with the Blackhawks is they're a terrible team and they will not
they've
contend.
always been terrible.
They've not always been terrible. There was a stretch there when they won like 3 cups in 5 years.
Okay, they've been terrible for a long time.
It's been like 10 years, but
It's a long time.
so for them, trying to get a young goaltender that can be your cornerstone is not a bad idea, and then getting a first round pick when you're this shitty also
Yeah,
probably not a bad idea. Try to at least build a franchise, open up some cap
into
space,
something.
and let's try to improve, get younger, and get better for the future. So for both sides, it does make a little bit of sense, but a pretty interesting trade, especially consider that the Blackhawks are retaining a pretty
Yeah,
good sum of money.
yeah.
Granted, they're not paying anybody that much anyway, so
I suppose that's something.
uh, you know, your cap space isn't that important. But yeah, that were the 2 trades that happened in the NHL. So
Nice.
nothing
All
crazy,
right.
but some pretty solid ones.
Well, I think then we're on to football, as there's been no serious news in the NBA.
Yeah.
And unlike every other news outlet, I do not feel compelled to talk about Luka Doncic and the Lakers again. So let's just move on.
Yeah. Trade happened.
Well, and just like how he's playing, we're not close enough to anything for me to care yet.
Fair. Yeah.
Like I cared when he played the Mavericks.
Because that's a story.
Yeah, that's a big
game.
story. That's an important game for him and for the Lakers. Now, I don't care.
Nope. Couldn't agree more.
On to football then.
On to football. You want to talk Ravens? Because it clearly looks
I shall talk Ravens. There's not been any breaking news, which actually for the Ravens right now, that's a good thing. It's a good thing. So I am gonna talk the NFLPA grades, and I'm going to. The Athletic did a story on the Ravens free agents, and they went who's gonna stay and who's gonna go. I'm going to do the same list and just kind of whether or not I agree or disagree. Mine will not be as long as theirs because I'm not going to talk for nearly that long. But I am going to talk about the free agents as the combine has wrapped up and we're heading into the draft and free agency. Just kind of what I think the Ravens will do with these free agents and what I would like them to do. I'm going to talk about the Ravens NFLPA grades. And really what I find more interesting is not what they got graded, but how those grades compare to what they were last year. Did the team get better? Did it get worse? Just players' opinions, especially as new draft picks come in, things like that. So last year in 2024, they were ranked 15th out of 32, very middle of the pack. It's fine. To 13th this year. Got a little better in some areas. At the end of the day, like, being super high or low is not very important to me. The Eagles and the Chiefs, like, winning organizations don't always rank at the top. They don't spend a ton of money on things like locker rooms or training equipment. It's just not always where their money goes. They want to win. So I'm less bothered by things like that. The one that really stands out that they got worse at, because pretty much every category they got better at. Treatment of families went from a B- to a C+. Food went from a C+ to a B. A lot of B- to B's, C+ to B-. So they got better in certain areas. The one that stands out, though, is head coach. Head coach gets a grade. And they went from a B+ last year at 20th to a B at 28th this year out of 32. And when several teams fired head coaches, kind of puts him last, actually. Like when you think about 6 head coaches were fired. And so there were that many interim head coaches. To be at the very bottom is concerning to me. It is categorized based off 2 things. 75% of Ravens players feel their head coach is efficient with their time. That's 28 out of 32. Players feel that Harbaugh is moderately receptive to feedback from the locker room on the team's needs, ranking him 25th out of 32. So a B doesn't sound bad, but it's actually not great. To be ranked that low, especially when it seems like, from an outside perspective, that they really love and respect Harbaugh and that they would kind of go to bat for him. But to have him ranked 28th makes me wonder if there is more tension, if there's more disagreement, or if it's simply a result of the playoff struggle. I've said adamantly that I don't think Harbaugh's job is on the line. I do think with the retention of Monken, that is true. But if this grade continues to slip, or if these locker room numbers get worse, that is how regimes change. So I found it interesting that he is ranked as low as he is, when from a fan perspective, it looks very different. But yeah, in general, most of these numbers or grades I don't find very important. I think if your training room is a B-, can't be that bad. Like, you still have state-of-the-art equipment. You're still an NFL organization. Maybe you don't have all the newest technology, or someone in. When you were watching Hard Knocks, we saw that they all have different things that they do. Like, some have infrared, but the Bengals had a cryo chamber. Like, everybody spends their money differently, so I'm less concerned about shit like that, unless there's an F, and then I would take a look at the Bengals because their report card was very interesting. But the head coach one, for him to be ranked that low, surprises me and does mildly concern me. Moving on to the Ravens free agents. Starting with, I'm just going to go in the order of the Athletic article, in case you want to follow along or you want to check it out. Nelson Aguilar, wide receiver. I actually think they'll keep him. The Athletic thinks he's going to go. I think they keep him. I think he's a good veteran presence in that locker room. He's a good safety net. Him and Lamar do have a connection. I don't think he's that expensive. I doubt that he would get a big contract or even a contract of substance with someone else. But he's a safety net. He does fill in when there are injuries. He draws defenses, and he's a good wide receiver. He's just not. He's very much a number 3. I would like them to keep him. Chris Board, inside linebacker. Led in special team snaps, started a game at inside linebacker. This is one, if the money, if he's cheap enough, stays, I think they got younger at O-line last year. I think there's a good chance they try to get younger at D-line this year. I wouldn't be shocked if he left or went into the practice squad. Ben Cleveland goes. It's not a whole ton of... Like, if we're confused, I'm confused. After the DUI, I don't expect him to stay. The Ravens have very little tolerance for shit like that. And he is expensive. So I expect him to go. Malik Harrison, linebacker. I expect him to stay. He filled in really well when Roquan was out. He ended up taking over at linebacker for that game in the next week. Played really well. Plays every snap. He doesn't have an injury problem. So I expect him to stay. I hope he stays. Make a good running mate for Roquan. Deontay Hardy goes. Like, nobody cares. Sorry. He wasn't impactful. He's played less than like 6 games. Not a ton of snaps. A lot of injury problems. It just didn't go the way the Ravens were hoping it would go. Deontay Johnson goes. They re-signed him for the draft pick that Brennan and I talked about when that happened. But his locker room presence, his attitude, absolutely not keeping that at all. Josh Johnson. The Athletic has him going. I don't really understand that. I don't expect that at all. He's cheap. He's a good veteran in that locker room. He's a good backup for Lamar, who is rarely hurt. Yes, they have drafted younger at quarterback, but younger means more expensive at quarterback, whereas a veteran means cheaper. Kind of works differently than literally every other position. Johnson's also bounced around a lot. He's played on a lot of different teams. I don't think he would want to pick up and go again. I think he would rather take a smaller contract and stay in Baltimore unless the opportunity to start came about. I don't think that's going to happen, though. Great backup, though. Josh Jones, guard tackle. He was a free agent signing last year. Didn't play a ton of snaps with all of the reshuffling at O-line that's been done. I think he was just kind of a plug and play while we see what Voorhees has and we get Rosengarten available and things like that. I think he'll go. I don't think he makes the final squad. Patrick McCarry, guard and tackle. Started every game. Moved around from right tackle to left guard. I think he stays. The only way I think McCarry goes is if they really think Voorhees is what they were hoping he was going to be. But based off Voorhees' very limited snaps at the end of the year, I kind of think they'll retain McCarry. I would like them to retain McCarry. I thought he played really well. It's a fun story. It's a good story. Trayvon Mullen goes. Spent the entire season on injured reserve. Has not played for the Ravens at all. So, corner, they're trying to get younger. They're trying to get available. That was really the struggle with the Ravens last year. So, I don't expect them to stay. The number one free agent that the Seattle Seahawks will leave the fuck alone.
Or they
Luke.
won't. Or they won't.
I will call him by his correct name in this. Patrick Ricard. Call him Picard. That's what a lot of his teammates call him if you're a Ravens fan. He's just a very versatile fullback. Yes, I do believe he will be expensive for a fullback. But he's very versatile in that offense. The team loves him. He's very much a Raven. That mentality, everything he does, he blocks very well. He catches. Big fan. Seattle will leave him the fuck alone.
See, I'm making these jokes about Seattle wanting to try him is because I do think he is one of the best fullbacks in the league. So if Seattle could sign him, I would be ecstatic. I do think he stays in Baltimore.
I think he stays.
What he does for Baltimore is too good, and they love him there.
Yeah,
from my understanding. So,
and they are one of few teams that like truly utilize the fullback anymore. But he is. It's not to be biased. I do think he's currently the best fullback in the game. Juszczyk maybe has an argument, but Juszczyk has injury problems.
I also think they're very different.
Yeah. Picard is very much a blocking.
I feel like Picard
with the ability to catch.
I feel like Ricard is much more a traditional fullback.
Yeah. Juszczyk is kind of a weird gadget guy.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think they'll sign him. I do think some of that will depend on what the number comes in at Stanley. Steven Sims, wide receiver, punt returner, probably gonna go. Harbaugh was pretty adamant at the end of the year. He wasn't very happy with the return situation, and as he is a special teams coach, when he says things like that, I expect it to go that way. So I do think Sims goes. There were some struggles, some drops, some things that happened that the Ravens just don't tolerate on special teams. Brandon Stevens, cornerback. I expect them to keep him. He can be expensive though, so I think depending on what he's expected to make in the free market, I expect them to offer something. But if they can't find the right number, good chance he does go. I would like him to stay. I thought he had a good season. There were some miscues, but it's going to depend on how highly coveted he is this offseason, honestly. I think if a team offers a high contract, there's a good chance he'll follow. I'd like him to stay, but he could be expensive. This was something both Harbaugh and EDC commented on last year, was they knew he had the potential to be expensive, and then he had a good year, and that doesn't help. Brent Urban. The Athletic thinks he'll go. I'm not convinced of that. There are questions about Michael Pierce, health-wise, and his contract status. Urban is a free agent, but Urban's not very expensive. I don't know that there's a very real market for him. When he plays, he does good things. He's a good rotational guy, but he's not an active starter. So I'm just not sure there's a market for him. And if there's not, I do think the Ravens retain him. Tylan Wallace, wide receiver, stays. Especially if Deontay Hardy's going. He's a great return man. He's kind of becoming can't think of his name now.
Devin Duvernay?
Thank you. The Duvernay of the team. A little older, really great for returns, and whenever Lamar throws him the ball, he runs 60 yards for a touchdown, and everybody can't touch him. So I like it. I like him. I think he's a good presence. He's kind of always a yes guy. He doesn't complain about the snaps he does and doesn't get. Um, he's just there for the team. So hope he stays. Christian Welch, inside linebacker. I'm gonna be perfectly honest with you. That's not even a name I really recognize. So I'm gonna say goes. And Tre'Davious White, stays. Good corner, played well. He was a acquisition last year before the deadline. They did trade for him. Rotational guy. Little older, but I think wanting to keep a good mix of veterans and young guys with all the other corners I think they'll be losing. He is cheaper. I think they'll keep him. And then last but certainly not least, the most important one, Ronnie Stanley, left tackle. This is simply going to come down to a number. I do not think Stanley wants to go anywhere, so I don't think it's going to be a give me huge money or I will leave. But I do think it has the potential to be a little too rich when he's had the injury issues that he's had. Yes, last year he was healthy, but that's I think that's his first in like 2 or 3 years he's played the whole season. So I do think that will have an impact, but I definitely want him to stay. Him and Lamar have a great connection, great understanding of each other. He's a great left tackle. He's one of the best in the league, but he has the potential to be very expensive. But I do know he is the Ravens' main priority of all of these names. I think Ricard should be next in terms of priority. After that, everybody else. And those will be the only two. I think Wallace will bother me. Like, if Wallace goes, I'll be upset. It's really the offensive guys. I'll be upset.
Interesting.
Defensively, I just have a hard time picturing, like, Malik Harrison, I would be shocked if he goes. Urban, I would be shocked. Urban is a really big sideline guy, so if he goes, I'll be upset. Like, he makes up so much of, like, their Wired episodes. He's just this presence and this energy on the Ravens sideline that I think he'd be missed in the locker room. I think that would be a loss.
Okay.
So that pretty much covers it for the Ravens. Did watch some of the combine. When you're primarily looking at offensive tackle, it's just not very exciting.
Yeah.
Like, I watched the tight ends run the 40, and just wanted to cry. So that wasn't relevant. I was just like, mine are better. So let's just not. Let's just sign the tight ends, and then fuck it. You know what? Get rid of all these agents. I don't care. just keep Mark and Likely, and I'll be happy. And I know that's not rational, but and Stanley and Ricard. You know what? Yeah, those four. And then everybody else, I don't care.
Okay. Well, I'm glad you have your priorities.
I have. Look, I just need my quarterback, my tight ends, and my left tackle and fullback, and we'll be good.
Yeah, that's a full team right there.
Like,
I mean, to be fair, you could get a lot done with that.
I can get a lot done with it. Oh, and in case, because it's been really weird conversation, Derrick Henry is still under contract, by the way, for everyone freaking out about where's Henry going to be next year. He's still a Raven. It was a 3-year contract. He's on the Ravens team. It's fine. He's not leaving. Next year it'll be a problem. But
For now,
Henry is still a Raven.
that's kicking it down the road.
He tweeted out, let's roll it back. They're going to roll it back. They're going to have a great regular season. Lamar will be the MVP. They might even be the fucking number 1 seed in the AFC, and then they'll lose in the playoffs. So it's like, doesn't even matter.
All right.
We roll it back really well, and then Coach Harbaugh will be a C- on the fucking grading report.
I mean, only one coach that was only one of the lowest ranked head coaches that still has a job. It's very interesting. Very interesting. So we'll see. Could be a problem.
Yeah. I was genuinely surprised that he was so low.
That is weird.
Like, when I think about how I view that team and how, from an outside perspective, I thought that team had been viewed, I just was shocked.
Yeah, definitely interesting, but I don't really know. Something happened, but we just don't have the inside knowledge.
Like, the Titans coach got an A-. Like, what is that? Like,
I don't know.
Fucking Tomlin got an A. Like, what's happening?
Well, I don't know. This one I cannot help you with.
I was just shocked. But then there are some C's that make me feel a little bit. The Cleveland Browns got a C, and
their head coach,
the Bears
C-.
got a C, and he got fired.
Yeah,
something I guess.
Not great.
Yes, it was the one thing on the list that genuinely surprised me.
Well, I guess speaking of NFL grades, we can jump to the Seahawks, and I'll talk about their NFLPA grades.
Let's do it.
So kind of the same thing. We'll talk about the Seahawks. The Seahawks are ranked 15th this year out of 32 teams, so right in the middle, box standard. Last year they were ranked 14th, so they went down one, but I'm not really sure.
A lot of changes.
I'm not really sure why they went down one. Because the only grade that substantially changed was the treatment of families, and last year it was a C. This year it's an A-. And that's the only thing that actually changed. Everything else stayed roughly the same. Their training room, their treatment of families is an A-. Food and dining is a B. Nutrition is a B. Locker room is a B+. Training room is a C. So not great. I do know that they are addressing that and renovating it. So there's that. Training staff is a B-. Weight room is a B. Strength coaches is an A-. And I know that went up from last year because their strength coaches were not an A- last year. Team travel went up from last year to an A- from a C, I believe. So everything's going up. Head coach is an A, which is good to hear that they like McDonald. And then ownership stayed the same at a C+. They don't love Jody Allen. That's not.
Yeah, no one's really shocked by that.
But it's a C+. It's not great. It's not bad.
Yeah.
So nothing went down.
The rest of the league went up.
Yeah. So 15th, but you improved on a lot of things. I don't really care. Your head coach was an A. That's the main thing I was looking at. And then everything else seemed to improve or is getting ready to improve. other than possibly ownership, but we'll kind of see what happens there. But yeah, otherwise, they're fine. Again, the big thing is Mike Macdonald got an A for coach. I think that's the big thing. That's pretty good.
What number was he ranked?
He is ranked 13th.
Okay.
So I can kind of read out the. So 100% of Seahawks players feel head coach Mike Macdonald is efficient with their time. He is one of 6 coaches across the league to receive a perfect score. And then the players feel that Mike Macdonald is moderately receptive to locker room feedback to the team's needs. That is 21st. So very efficient.
Yeah.
But not very receptive. So that's not necessarily that surprising. It is his first year.
Yeah.
But the 100% efficiency is kind of insane. Only 6 coaches. I don't know what other 6 coaches got that. But yeah, 100%. So pretty solid there. And yeah, he's ranked 13th of 32 teams. So pretty solid there for head coach Mike Macdonald. And again, Seahawks sit in the top half. So good things.
Yeah.
So now on to like actual football. Over the weekend, if you're a Seahawks fan, you might have seen the rumors about DK Metcalf getting traded. He was not traded. Apparently, there was a offer on the table from the Green Bay Packers. So from my understanding, is teams are calling about his availability, and the Seahawks are taking the calls and are listening to the calls, but they have a very specific range of value in mind. And it seems to be they want a first round pick plus more. That is what they were going to. That is what they wanted from Green Bay. Green Bay failed to meet the offer, so DK Metcalf remains a Seahawk. I do know some other teams have made calls. I know the Patriots made one. They are no longer interested. And then I do believe the Bills and the Chiefs have both shown interest.
I don't. Not for a first round. Like, I like Metcalf. I do. But God damn.
That was the thing, is it was reported that the Seahawks were asking for a Green Bay's 23rd overall pick this year and a young wide receiver. That was what they were asking for. So they are not planning on trading Metcalf unless someone decides to heavily overpay.
Yeah, overpay.
Which I'm fine. I don't like, again. If someone was willing to offer a first round pick plus a young receiver, I say you jump on that shit like immediately. But they are not currently shopping him, but people are offering. So if there is a offer they like, he
may take it.
Be traded. As of now, I don't think that'll happen. But just something to keep in mind. But as of now, he is still a Seahawk. The same can be said for Tyler Lockett. It has been reported that it does not seem like they are going to come to a agreement on a contract that is lesser, or a reworked contract to bring his cap hit down. So I would expect him to be released at some point. We will kind of see what happens, but I don't expect.
I'm a little shocked that he wasn't willing to rework it.
Well, I don't think they're technically allowed to talk to him yet. They have to talk to his agent.
Okay, but the agent
should
and him, that still comes from him.
Yes. I will say talks have been pretty limited, so who knows? But I said I don't think he'll be back. Because I think they're trying to make him take a significant pay cut. And I think that's where it comes from. So, as of now, he's still a Seahawk. But we'll kind of wait and see. And then Dallas talked about the combine. I actually did watch quite a bit of it. I said I would, and I do have two names from each position I mentioned last week. So, of
I like it.
people that I thought stood out and that I could
Okay.
see being there for Seattle to draft somewhere in the draft. I tried to do a first to second round player and then a third to that end of the draft.
Yeah.
Try to do first and second and then third to seventh type thing. Didn't work out, and some of them, they're more on the first and second side. But we'll start with the offensive line because that is the biggest position of need for the Seahawks. And for starters, I think Armand Menbu, the tackle out of Missouri, really stood out to me. You might be sitting there going, Seattle is set at tackle, and I would agree. But I think Membu can transition into inside at guard really easily, and we're still not 100% sure if Abe Lucas is completely ready to go and healthy for long term. Obviously, he played a lot of last year and looked fine, and has done stuff this offseason to get better and be all right. And his knee seems to be okay, but this is kind of an insurance policy on that. If you
Yeah.
went with tackle that could play inside, is you have someone that could easily swing back out and cover for him if needed. So that's kind of where I went with that one. And then the other one is Jackson Slater out of Sacramento State. He really stood out. He had a pretty decent 40 time, could move really well, um, is pretty strong, had good bench numbers. Just looked like someone that would fit what Kubiak wants to do in his scheme, and is someone that can play inside, not really outside. So don't look at him as a tackle, look at him more as a guard or center option. But someone I thought that really stood out and that could probably fix the O line day one. As a later round pick, I'm thinking third to fourth is his range, just based on what I'm seeing. Membu, I think, will go in the first. He's one of the better tackle prospects, and those tend to go higher up the board. So in terms of offensive line, those two guys kind of really stood out to me. Receiver wise, um, I think the main one that stood out to me was Xavier Restrepo out of Miami. He just looks so smooth as a wide receiver. Um, I think he would be a really great complementary piece to what they have in DK and JSN. Kind of like that Lockett, just younger.
Hmm.
Um, so someone that I think could go second round, maybe top of first, depending on needs, or bottom of first, I guess, depending on needs. And then the other one is Jalen Noel. He's much more of an athletic wide receiver, and I think he showed real athleticism. He's out of Iowa State. Yeah, Iowa State. Uh, just kind of an athletic freak. Another okay complementary piece. This one is also maybe assuming DK gets traded because I think he could kind of fill in that DK role a little better. So I did those two. Both of them, I think, are in that second round range, maybe the third round, depending on how things go. But I think they will most likely fall in the second round range. Uh, but I think they're good fits for the Seahawks. On the D line, I'm going to do interior first. I did two for each because I think those groups did really well. On the interior, Cam Jackson out of Florida is a big nose tackle that I really think stood out. Had an OK 40 for his size. Just looks huge, and that's pretty much all you need to be for a nose tackle is big. Um, Pretty solid there. And then Darius Alexander is kind of the opposite. Is an interior guy that's a little faster, can maybe rush the passer a little better. So I did that instead, give a little
Little
difference
bounce.
there. Um, he looks really solid. as a guy that can kind of be a little quicker, maybe replace Leonard Williams once he comes to the end of his career. That's a little younger. Someone that's pretty solid there. On the edge, I went with Shamar Stewart out of Texas A&M. He looks incredible. He's probably one of the best edge prospects in this draft. I don't think he'll fall to Seattle at 18, but if he does, he's someone that I would sprint the card up if he's still available for the Seahawks in the first round. Looks really solid as a pass rusher. And then the other one I did was Landon Jackson out of Arkansas. He's a much bigger, taller, more physical edge, not as fast, but someone that I think could be kind of like the Keith Urban was, or not Keith Urban, Brent Urban.
Brent Urban?
Yeah.
Urban.
Not the country singer.
Did not realize he was available for the NFL.
Yeah, I didn't either. Brett Urban, a bigger, more stout edge rusher. I think he could play that role that he was with McDonald. So I had Landon Jackson there. I think he's a little bit of a later round pick. So that's why I put him there. And then for quarterbacks, I think Jackson Dart just seems to be one of the better quarterback options in this draft. I think he, at this point,
he has a hell of an arm.
Yeah, for me,
his arm is a fucking cannon.
For me, crazy. At this point, I think he's quarterback 3 in this draft. Whether he makes it to Seattle's pick in the second or first, we'll kind of have to see. I don't think they should take him in the first round, but if he falls to them in the second, or if he's there in the third, I would love to take a shot at him as a developmental guy that can eventually take over for Geno. I think he has, as Dallas said, great arm, is athletic enough. So I think he's a good option. And then Tyler Shuck out of Louisville. He's another one. Great arm. Athletic enough. He's a much lower down the board for me. I think he's in that late round pick area. He's another one you could take a shot on as a developmental guy. I just don't think he has as much potential as Jackson Dart does. But those are the two guys that stood out to me as like potential options. And then the last position is the tight end position. A guy that like I thought really stood out was Terrence Ferguson out of Oregon. He had a great combine, ran the fastest 40 of the tight ends, which is big. Had a great vertical, is big, has shown blocking potential. So it's just someone that I think overall could play the tight end position really well. So he was one. I struggled to pick a second. And then Gunnar Helm was my second out of Texas. The reason I picked him is because he ran a really bad 40 time. It wasn't great. And then after the combine, he posted a thing. He had sprained his ankle prior to running the 40 and still decided to do it. I don't know when he sprained it. I don't know if it was his first 40 or earlier in drills, but he sprained it, still ran the 40, and still participated in other drills. So for me, I think that bumped him into my players to watch, because in an era where a lot of guys sit out the combine and don't participate and don't show that they love football, for him to do that, I think just kind of elevated him for me. He's probably a later round pick, but I'd be willing to take a chance on him just purely out of, I think he can be more athletic. He can be what you're looking for as a tight end, and he's shown grit.
Yeah.
And willingness to put his body on the line to play football. So for me, that raised him up mine a little bit.
Nope, that is fair. That it was impressive, because when he ran the 40, everyone was like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Like, you don't have to run that. Like, it's okay to not. And then for him to announce the ankle sprain, it says more about the player and
his mentality.
Yeah, and his physicality versus sometimes what a 40 can tell you. Like, I get it. I get why they run it, but very few tight ends are genuinely asked to run a 40 as fast as possible. Like,
Yeah, but I do think like it is important to show what you can do, and that's
yeah,
why I gave a ton of respect for that, and
yeah,
that's why I.
to still go out there and do it, it says a lot.
So that's the 12 names of people that really stood out. Obviously, more did. I just narrowed it down to my like top two of each position. Um, but a lot of guys really stood out.
Yeah,
It's going to be a pretty solid draft class. I'm excited. Um, so it should be fun.
always excited for the draft. Always excited.
Love the draft.
And we always watch Draft Day, which is not a good movie, but we watch it, and it's not
It's
accurate at all, but we love it.
but it's a fantastic movie.
It's a fantastic, and it's a great movie. Um,
Not accurate, not
so no,
real,
God.
but fantastic. So
Um, yeah, it's just for me. It really marks the beginning of the NFL season. Like I know we have trades up until then and free agent, and there are things happening, but the draft genuinely because then you get to see like what your team's focus is, what
yeah,
they're trying to achieve
what they want to
going into
build
the
on.
next year. Yeah, like for me that's really the starting point.
Yeah,
I
I'm
always get
every
excited at the draft.
every year the draft is kind of my highlight of the off
Yeah,
season. So should be exciting. Um,
definitely.
can't wait.
Definitely. Alrighty. Well, I think that does it for the Seahawks.
It does.
Moving on to our team of the week. We are still in the NFC North. If you missed it but want to check it out, we did talk the Vikings last week and the Lions the
The
week
week before.
before. So this week we are going to stick with the Packers.
Yep.
Uh, moving down the line. Brendan, what can you tell us about the Packers?
So obviously the Packers have Jordan Love, who is still, I believe, on his rookie contract and doesn't need a contract till next year. I want to say. So all good there. You don't have to pay your quarterback for a little bit, which is always nice.
He's
Uh,
already been given a new contract.
has he?
Yeah, that came last offseason.
You're right. So he's under contract for a little bit.
Yeah, he got 4
Yep.
at
He
255.
he is under contract until 2028 with void years after that. So 2028. So yeah. So you don't have to pay him for a little bit. Everyone
Yep.
else seems to be fine. They do have $48.8 million in cap space, so a pretty solid amount without touching anything, without releasing anybody, without trading anybody, without doing anything. So it's a great amount to have. They do have a pretty solid young line. Their defense is aging a little bit, so they might have to uh, figure that out. But they also have really young wide receivers, so they're not making anything right now.
Yeah.
So overall, they're in a pretty solid position in terms of free agency and being able to go out there, pick a couple guys, get them in the building, um, and possibly even re-sign the couple of free agents they have coming up this year. And then obviously the news of them listening to offers on Jair Alexander has also come out. He has a $16.1 million cap hit this year. So if he does get traded, they take on a portion of that. So we'll see what happens there. That could change their cap situation a little bit. But yeah, we'll see. And that's their main thing that they're looking at in terms of a trade is what they're going to do with Jair Alexander.
Yeah, they are a very young team. They still are one of the youngest average wise in the NFL. Obviously, they made a name for themselves 2 years ago when they beat the Cowboys in the playoffs as the youngest team
Hmm.
to win a playoff game. And they don't have a very like a traditional number one wide receiver. They're very young, very
Mm-hmm.
inexperienced. Um, but Jordan Love is growing with this locker room. We saw a time when Aaron Rodgers had outgrown them, and it was all about him and the spotlight and things like that. And Jordan Love now is kind of having the benefit. He's around their age. He's growing with them. Um, I don't think Love's contract kicks in till this year, but to have that kind of cap space is pretty good when you have that young of a team and you saw the holes they had last year. I think, we talked about it in season. They really expected Love to take that next step. And then when he got hurt, they just never quite regained their footing.
Yeah.
So to see them have that kind of cap capability in that space for free agency, maybe get some veterans in the building, age up a little bit just to push this team to the next level. When you look at what the Eagles did this year, what the Commanders did this year, what the Lions did last year, what Minnesota's hoping to be, the NFC is growing very rapidly and they're getting better. Green Bay can't really afford to take these steps slowly.
Yeah.
They need to progress.
Um,
So,
I
yeah,
think
to
they
have that cap capability.
yeah, especially because I think they could easily bring that up to 60 pretty easily. So I think they should take some swings at some real free agent target, like get some real guys in there to really improve that team. Um, Maybe take a swing at a real number one wide receiver. Really get a guy in there for Love, um, and then maybe swing at some stuff on the defense. But otherwise, this team is relatively solid. Obviously young, so try to get some vets in there. Try to get some real solid free agents, and I think this team could do a lot.
Heck yeah.
Um,
Heck yeah. I also think, like, I think sometimes they're a team we don't think about their head coach a whole ton.
yeah,
Um, but LaFleur is a very talented offensive mind. And we saw that with his ability to get Malik Willis on the same page within the play system and then win games when Love was out. So I'm not sure LaFleur quite gets enough credit. So yeah, I since we're talking Packers and the grades are out, I was just looking at their grades. Head coach, they got an A minus. Um, it's 93% of Packers players feel their head coach is efficient with their time. They're ranked 18 out of 32. Players feel LaFleur is moderately receptive to locker room feedback on teams' needs, ranking him 23rd out of 32.
okay. So
So, yeah, they do really well in all of these categories. They're all A's and B's. Nothing below a B. The lowest thing that I saw, just kind of reading some of the rankings and stuff, was training staff. Was I think hold on. Yeah, was training staff. Or I'm sorry, strength coaches. 85% of players report they get an individual training program from their strength coach staff, ranking them 29th out of 32. That's their lowest strength on anything. Um, Here's the thing, though. Like, obviously, we don't know. I assume these things are anonymous. 85% of players report they get an individualized training plan. I'm not convinced that you would give a lot of the practice squad guys an individual one. Also, like, what kind of training program do you really put a kicker on? Or, like some of those positions, why would you need one? Like, not to diminish their value, but like, kick the ball. I don't know what to tell you. Like do some leg presses, but not too many. You know what I mean? Like some of those positions, I'm not sure what benefit you would get from that. So, as an organization, they've always been really well run. They're the only they're the only publicly owned team. They don't have an owner. They have like a board of directors. They are a publicly owned team. So that's always interesting.
They are owned.
And
so what's really interesting, and I didn't know this, and I found this out.
Go ahead. We're learning a lot with this individual team.
I didn't think this was allowed. But he mentioned it because John Snyder used to work for the Green Bay Packers. Mm-hmm. And he had bought shares in their ownership. Mm. I didn't think you were allowed to have shares in another team and then work for another team.
Yeah.
So John Schneider still has shares in Green Bay.
Still is technically a shareholder. That's crazy.
But works for the Seahawks. I wonder if it's because he doesn't hold enough shares for it to affect
matter. Anything. Yeah, that's kind of crazy, though. I am shocked that that's allowed.
I am too. But he said it in an interview at the Combine.
Yeah. So I can't imagine that he thought that would put his job at risk.
Yeah. So, like, it must be fine.
Yeah.
But I heard it and went, you can do that?
I'm just shocked that you can do that.
Because he's not, like, majority owner. So.
And they've always had, they have a QB plan that works. They're a very well-run organization. They're a very stable and functional organization. Yes. They have a culture and a process that works for them. So,
and works
I think
really well.
If Love can take that next step, it's hard. The NFC North is a very competitive division right now in football. I don't know that I see them being a division winner. Maybe they could battle the Lions for it, depending on what the Vikings do. Especially if the Vikings bring in a new quarterback or a rookie quarterback. Maybe you take some time to get used to the system. Maybe there are setbacks.
Or if they start J.J. McCarthy this year.
Yeah, like maybe you could battle the Lions for it. I do think, though, at their core, they're a playoff team, whether they win the division or not. And in most playoffs and in sports, it's just about getting in the race. I know the Chiefs make it look fucking easy, but if you can get in the race, the Commanders proved anybody can win any given Sunday, and I think the Packers can be a contender if they can get a little veteran presence and Love can take that next step. They're a good team.
Yeah, I think it's tough because I think their division's only going to get harder.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Especially if the Bears,
Okay, well, we'll talk about the Bears next week.
They got a young QB and a young head coach. We'll see what happens. But if the Bears can figure their shit out,
it's a very competitive division. It's one of the most competitive in the NFC, outside of, I think, yours.
I don't know if the NFC West is going to get competitive again. Obviously, Stafford is sticking around. We did kind of forget to mention that.
Oh yeah, he did rework his deal.
I just realized he did rework his deal. So he's in it for the long run, or not long run, but he's in it with the Rams. So they're always going to be competitive. I just don't know. Obviously, it could be but I always feel like the NFC West looks competitive, and then teams have issues and just kind of
That's
fall
fair.
out. That's what
I
happened
feel
last year.
like if you look at the Rams and their struggles in the beginning, and then they got better, they got healthier, they draft really well.
Yeah,
I think the Rams have the ability to be competitive. I think the 49ers were massively unlucky with injuries. They don't have quite the contract problems they have this year. You got Debo out of the building.
they can be
Yes, they
competitive.
are a little old at certain positions, so it will be interesting how they tackle that. But they're competitive. I think the Seahawks bringing in a new OC, you have the ability to be competitive.
And
The Cardinals are really the like I think it mirrors the North, and like you have three that have that potential,
fair.
and then the Cardinals or
That's no,
the Bears.
that's fair. I do think that is definitely something to keep an eye on. But I do think the overall, I would probably say the NFC North is more competitive, purely because I
That's fair.
think just how good Minnesota and the Lions can be, and then we obviously saw what the Packers are or what the Packers could be, and then they have the Bears
Yeah, and we'll talk about the Bears
next
next
week.
week, and
Um,
we'll get into all of that. But yeah, I think the Packers can be competitive. I'm not sure. I'm not sure they're quite ready to compete for the win of the division. Um,
or conference.
yeah, I definitely don't think they're ready to compete for the conference.
I don't know. If you look at it, if they compete for the division, they can compete for the conference.
And that's why I don't
Yeah,
think they're quite there yet. But like, okay, to compete with the division, you have to deal with the Lions and the Vikings, which difficult. But the conference, you have the Eagles. If the 49ers can get back to what they are,
yeah.
I um
The Commanders.
the Commanders, like you have some really good teams. I don't think they're there yet.
No.
Love needs to I need him to take that next step and take it consistently for
Yes.
me to think they're competitive for the number 1 spot in the NFC.
Yeah. I
But
agree
I
with you.
think they're a playoff team.
They're absolutely a playoff team. I think at worst they're they're one win away from the playoffs. At best, they're second in their division and a playoff team. So
Yeah,
for the Packers, I think it's just maybe take some swings at the fences for some really high quality free agents.
especially with all that cap space.
And you're a young team. At a certain point, it's you're going to see diminishing returns being a young team. You need some vets,
Yeah,
and you need some real rock stars. Um,
and I think we saw they need to upgrade the O line, um, and
just
they
a little
need
bit.
I think a better running back. Love clearly operates better with a talented running back.
And Josh Jacobs is good, and I like Josh Jacobs. I think they just need one more. I think they need
Yeah, someone
that
to take the load off a little bit.
that 1-2 punch because I don't think Jacobs can do it all.
Well, and I
Um,
think Jacobs was third in terms of running backs last year.
yeah,
Had a really great year, but you saw it like with the Eagles in the Super Bowl, or you see it sometimes when you watch the Ravens. When you have a number 1 running back that's that talented, that tends to become the focal point of defenses. So if you can get in a solid number 2 running back to lighten the load a little bit, sometimes your one just can do even more. And the Eagles, Hurts is a mobile quarterback. The Ravens, Lamar's a mobile quarterback. Love really isn't. So I think Josh would really benefit from a second running back just to help keep the defense guessing a little bit.
this is definitely the draft to get a running back.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
This is one of the best drafts we've seen for running backs in a long time. Um, so if you're a fan of the Packers, be excited because I think they can do a lot in this draft, a lot in the free agency,
Yeah.
and really set themselves up for success now and possibly even in the future with how young that team is.
And I mean, that's that. I feel like the Packers and the Rams are exact opposites. Like the Rams are always kind of a right here, right now, what can we do? And the Rams so often look to the future.
Yeah, I think the Packers might need to start taking the approach of if you keep looking at the future, eventually you're never going to make it to where you want to
Yeah,
be. So you kind of need, hey, pick a year and let's go after it. I think this is a good year to do it. You have the cap space to really sign some impactful free agents. This draft, you can definitely get some real impactful players. So I think this could be a really good year for them to try to take some swings and
I
really
agree.
prove that they can compete.
They can compete, they can contend, and that they're going to make their mark in the NFC.
Yeah.
You know, so I definitely agree.
I think that's it for the talk for the team of the week.
Awesome,
I
awesome
think that's it for
for us this week.
yeah. Unless you had something else.
I did not, because the one thing we forgot, we circled back to, which
Yeah.
was Stafford.
Yep.
Um, and then, like I said, next week we will talk the Bears. Packers fans, hit us up in the comments. Tell us what you thought, what you think of your team, what your expectations are for next year. We want to hear from you guys.
Yeah. Bears fans,
What do
let
you
us
want
know
to talk about?
uh,
Yeah,
because we can obviously talk that they got Ben Johnson, but other than that, not really sure what else to talk about with the Bears. So if Bears fans got anything they want us to talk about, let us know. And obviously, any other fan of a team,
yeah,
let us know what you want us to talk about your team. We can also skip around, pick a new team, pick a new division
we
once we're
can go.
done with the Bears. So just let us know.
Yep,
All that being
we're
said,
not stuck on anything.
yeah. So all that being said, make sure to like, subscribe, comment. Again, let us know. We will try our best to answer it, get to it. We are pretty flexible. We will get it
We are
done.
at that.
So yeah, make sure to like, subscribe, let us know. All that being said, I've been Brendan.
And I've been Dallas.
Thank y'all.
Bye.